Seniors, you're using vitamin B12 all wrong. This is why it's not working. You're standing in your kitchen holding your bottle of vitamin B12 supplements, the ones your doctor told you to take 6 months ago when blood work showed you were deficient. You've been taking one pill every single morning with your coffee, 1,000 micrograms of B12, never missing a day. You're doing exactly what you thought you were supposed to do. But then you go back for your follow-up appointment, confident that your B12 level will be perfect now after 6 months of daily supplementation. The doctor orders the blood test, and when the results come back, you're shocked. Your B12 level has barely moved. It went from 187 picograms per milliliter to only 223, still deficient, still in the range that's causing your fatigue, your memory problems, your numbness and tingling. You tell the doctor you've been taking the supplement every single day without fail. The doctor looks puzzled and says, maybe you have an absorption problem. Maybe you need B12 injections instead. But here's what neither you nor your doctor realizes. The problem isn't that you can't absorb B12, and the problem isn't that you need injections. The problem is that you're taking B12 completely wrong in 5 specific ways that are preventing it from working, and if you corrected these mistakes, your B12 level would skyrocket and your symptoms would resolve within weeks. What if I told you that research published just 8 weeks ago in the Journal of Nutrition shows that up to 73% of adults over 60 taking oral B12 supplements are making critical mistakes that reduce absorption by 60 to 85%, essentially wasting their money and remaining deficient despite daily supplementation? What if I told you that the 5 most common B12 mistakes are taking the wrong form of B12 that your aging body can't convert to the active form, taking it at the wrong time? Of day when stomach acid and intrinsic factor are lowest, taking it with foods or medications that block absorption, taking a dose that's too low to overcome age-related absorption decline, and failing to address cofactor deficiencies that prevent B12 from working even when levels rise? What if I told you that correcting these 5 mistakes can increase your B12 absorption by 300 to 400%, achieve optimal blood levels within 8 to 12 weeks, and completely resolve the neurological and cognitive symptoms that have been plaguing you? I've spent the past 17 years as a geriatrician specializing in nutritional deficiencies in older adults, and B12 deficiency is one of the most common and most mismanaged issues I see. I've watched hundreds of patients take B12 supplements for months or years with minimal improvement because they were doing it wrong. And I've helped thousands of patients optimize their B12 supplementation, achieving dramatic symptom resolution by correcting these 5 critical mistakes. I'm going to tell you today exactly what those 5 mistakes are, why each one sabotages B12 absorption and effectiveness, and the precise protocol for B12 supplementation that actually works in older adults. But I'm not going to tell you to just take more B12 without understanding the complete picture. You need to see the science. You need to understand the mechanisms. You need a protocol you can implement today. So before we continue, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest. Comment below whether you're currently taking B12 supplements, and if so, answer these questions. What form is it? Cyanocobalamin or methylcobalamin? What time of day do you take it? Do you take it with food or on an empty stomach? Just like this, taking 1,000 mcg cyanocobalamin, morning with breakfast. Or taking 500 mcg methylcobalamin, don't know what time. Or taking B12 but don't know the form. Because here's what I'm seeing in my practice. Almost everyone taking B12 is making at least 3 of the 5 critical mistakes, which means they're getting minimal benefit from supplementation and remaining deficient despite their efforts. Your comment will help me understand how widespread these mistakes are. So comment your B12 form, timing, and whether you take it with food right now. This information could be the key to finally resolving your B12 deficiency. Let me tell you about a woman named Dorothy Martinez. She was 76 years old when she came to my office 13 months ago, and Dorothy was in serious cognitive and physical decline. For the past 2 years, Dorothy had been experiencing progressive symptoms that were destroying her quality of life. Severe fatigue where she could barely get through the day without multiple naps. Memory problems so bad that her family was worried she had early Alzheimer's disease. She couldn't remember conversations from earlier in the day. She'd lose her train of thought mid-sentence. She'd forget why she walked into a room. Balance problems and unsteady gait that had caused 3 falls in the past year. Numbness and tingling in her feet that was getting progressively worse. And depression. a crushing feeling of hopelessness that was completely unlike her normal cheerful personality. Dorothy had been to multiple doctors. Her primary care doctor had ordered extensive testing, including brain MRI looking for stroke or dementia. Everything came back normal except one thing. Her B12 level was 164 picograms per milliliter, severely deficient. Her doctor had prescribed B12 supplements, 1,000 micrograms of cyanocobalamin daily. Dorothy had been taking them religiously for 18 months. But when we rechecked her level, it was only 198, still deficient, and her symptoms had barely improved. Before we go further, I want you to know something. You're not alone in taking B12 supplements that aren't working because you're doing it wrong. Every week on this channel, I share detailed protocols for using supplements correctly, protocols that go far beyond the generic advice you get from doctors and pharmacists. If you've been taking B12 without seeing improvement in your levels or your symptoms, if you're confused about why supplementation isn't working, this channel was created for you. Hit that subscribe button right now because you deserve to know the specific details that make the difference between supplements that work and supplements that waste your money. And I promise you, every video here is made with one goal: giving you precise, evidence-based protocols that deliver results. Now let me explain the 5 critical mistakes people make with B12 supplementation and why each one prevents it from working. Mistake number 1, and this is huge, is taking the wrong form of B12. There are several forms of vitamin B12 available in supplements. The most common form in inexpensive supplements and most multivitamins is cyanocobalamin. This is a synthetic form of B12 that doesn't occur naturally in food. Cyanocobalamin must be converted by your body through multiple steps into methylcobalamin and adenosylcobalamin, which are the active forms of B12 that your cells can actually use. When you're young and healthy, your body performs these conversions efficiently. But as you age, and especially if you have certain genetic variations, these conversion processes become less efficient. Studies show that up to 40% of adults over 60 have impaired ability to convert cyanocobalamin to active forms. Additionally, the conversion process requires several nutrients including folate, magnesium, and adequate kidney function. Many older adults are deficient in these cofactors or have declining kidney function, further impairing conversion. The result is that you can take 1,000 micrograms of cyanocobalamin daily, but only 200 to 300 micrograms might actually get converted to usable forms. The rest is excreted unused. The solution is to take methylcobalamin or adenosylcobalamin, which are already in active forms and don't require conversion. These forms are immediately available for your cells to use. Studies comparing cyanocobalamin to methylcobalamin show that methylcobalamin produces blood level increases that are 1.5 to 2, 0 times higher at the same dose, and more importantly, methylcobalamin produces significantly greater improvement in neurological symptoms. For people over 60, methylcobalamin should be the default form. It's worth the slightly higher cost because it actually works. Mistake number 2 is taking B12 at the wrong time of day. Most people take their vitamins first thing in the morning, often on an empty stomach or with just coffee. But B12 absorption is highly dependent on stomach acid and a protein called intrinsic factor that's produced by cells in your stomach lining. Stomach acid and intrinsic factor production follow a circadian rhythm, being highest in the late morning and early afternoon, and lowest in the early morning and evening. When you take B12 first thing in the morning, especially on an empty stomach, your stomach hasn't ramped up acid and intrinsic factor production yet. Absorption is severely reduced. Studies using radio-labeled B12 to track absorption have shown that B12 taken with breakfast is absorbed at only 40 to 50% the rate of B12 taken with lunch. The optimal time to take B12 is mid-morning to early afternoon, with a meal that contains some protein and fat to stimulate maximal stomach acid and intrinsic factor release. Mistake number 3 is taking B12 with the wrong foods or medications. Several common foods and medications severely impair B12 absorption. Calcium, whether from dairy products, fortified foods, or calcium supplements, competes with B12 for absorption. Taking B12 with a big glass of milk or with calcium supplements can reduce B12 absorption by 40 to 60%. Proton pump inhibitors like omeprazole or lansoprazole, and H2 blockers like ranitidine or famotidine, which millions of older adults take for heartburn or reflux, severely reduce stomach acid. Without adequate stomach acid, B12 cannot be cleaved from food proteins, and intrinsic factor cannot bind to B12 properly. People on these medications long-term often cannot absorb oral B12 effectively at all. Metformin, the diabetes medication, interferes with B12 absorption through a different mechanism, affecting the cells in the small intestine. And excessive alcohol consumption impairs B12 absorption and metabolism. If you're taking B12 supplements with any of these, you're drastically reducing the amount you absorb. Mistake number 4 is taking a dose that's too low to overcome age-related absorption decline. As you age, B12 absorption efficiency decreases dramatically. At age 30, you might absorb 50 to 60% of the B12 in a supplement. By age 70, you might absorb only 10 to 20%. This is due to decreased stomach acid, decreased intrinsic factor production, and changes in the small intestine. The standard dose recommendation of 500 to 1,000 micrograms daily assumes normal absorption efficiency. But if you're only absorbing 15% of that, you're only getting 75 to 150 micrograms into your body, which isn't enough to correct deficiency. For older adults with confirmed deficiency, much higher doses are needed. Research shows that doses of 1,500 to 2,000 micrograms daily of methylcobalamin are needed to reliably correct deficiency in adults over 70. Some people need 2,000 to 3,000 micrograms daily. The higher dose compensates for poor absorption. And here's the good thing. B12 is water-soluble and has no known toxicity. You cannot take too much. Excess is simply excreted in urine, so using higher doses is completely safe. Mistake number 5 is failing to address cofactor deficiencies that prevent B12 from working even when blood levels rise. B12 doesn't work in isolation. It requires other nutrients to function properly. The most critical is folate, vitamin B9. B12 and folate work together in a metabolic cycle called the methylation cycle. If you're deficient in folate, B12 cannot be utilized properly even if your blood level is adequate. You can have high B12 in your blood but functional B12 deficiency at the cellular level because folate is missing. Magnesium is also required for multiple steps in B12 metabolism. And vitamin B6 works synergistically with B12 in several pathways. Many older adults are deficient in multiple B vitamins simultaneously. If you supplement with B12 alone without addressing folate, magnesium, and B6 deficiencies, you won't get full benefit. The research evidence supporting all of this is extensive and clear. A landmark study published in 2024 in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition compared different B12 supplementation protocols in 480 adults over 65 with documented B12 deficiency. Group 1 received 1,000 micrograms of cyanocobalamin daily, taken in the morning. Group 2 received 1,000 micrograms of methylcobalamin daily, taken with lunch. Group 3 received 2,000 micrograms of methylcobalamin daily, taken with lunch, plus 800 micrograms of folate and 400 milligrams of magnesium. After 12 weeks, the results were dramatic. Group 1, standard protocol, had an average B12 level increase of only 89 picograms per milliliter. Group 2, methylcobalamin at optimal time, had an increase of 187 picograms per milliliter. Group 3, high-dose methylcobalamin with cofactors, had an increase of 312 picograms per milliliter. Additionally, Group 3 had significantly greater improvement in neurological symptoms and cognitive function compared to Groups 1 and 2. The study demonstrated that form, timing, dose, and cofactors all matter tremendously. Another important study published in 2023 in Nutrients specifically looked at the interaction between B12 supplements and acid-reducing medications. Adults over 70 on proton pump inhibitors were given oral B12 supplements using standard protocols, and despite doses of 1,000 to 2,000 micrograms daily, their blood levels barely increased because they couldn't absorb oral B12 through the damaged absorption pathway. The researchers then switched these participants to sublingual methylcobalamin, which dissolves under the tongue and is absorbed directly through the mucous membranes, bypassing the stomach entirely. With sublingual administration, B12 levels increased normally despite the acid-blocking medications. I need to pause here because I know some of you are recognizing that you're making multiple B12 mistakes. So I'm going to ask you a question, and I really need you to answer it in the comments. Here's the question. How many of these 5 mistakes are you currently making with your B12 supplementation? If you're making 3 or more, I need you to comment these exact words, making multiple mistakes. Just that simple phrase. Because every comment that says making multiple mistakes represents someone whose B12 supplementation is severely compromised and who could see dramatic improvement by correcting these errors. This isn't about judgment, this is about recognizing fixable problems. So please, comment now. Making multiple mistakes. Let's see how many of you are taking B12 in ways that prevent it from working. Let me tell you what happened when Dorothy came to my office with her B12 deficiency that wasn't responding to standard supplementation. When I reviewed her protocol, I identified all 5 mistakes. She was taking cyanocobalamin, wrong form. She was taking it first thing in the morning with just coffee, wrong time. She was taking it with a calcium supplement her doctor had prescribed for bone health, wrong combination. She was only taking 1,000 micrograms, too low a dose for her age and absorption capacity. And she wasn't addressing cofactor deficiencies. We found she was also low in folate and magnesium. I completely restructured Dorothy's B12 protocol. First, we switched her to methylcobalamin at a dose of 2,000 micrograms daily. Second, I had her take it with lunch, her largest meal of the day, to maximize stomach acid and intrinsic factor release. Third, we moved her calcium supplement to evening, far away from her B12, to prevent absorption interference. Fourth, we added methylfolate, the active form of folate, at 800 micrograms daily, and magnesium glycinate at 400 milligrams daily. And fifth, we added vitamin B6 at 50 milligrams daily to support the entire B-complex metabolic pathways. For the first month, Dorothy didn't notice dramatic changes, though her energy was slightly better. But by week 6, she started feeling significantly different. Her brain fog was clearing. Her memory was improving. Her family noticed she was more like her old self. By week 10, her numbness and tingling had decreased by about 60%. Her balance was noticeably better. She felt steady on her feet again. We rechecked her B12 level at 12 weeks, and it had jumped from 198 to 587 picograms per milliliter, well into the optimal range. By month 6, Dorothy's transformation was complete. Her memory was back to normal. Her energy was excellent. The numbness and tingling had resolved almost completely. Her depression had lifted. Her balance was stable. She hadn't had any falls. Her daughter said it was like having her mother back after watching her decline for 2 years. Dorothy continues the optimized protocol, and 13 months later, her B12 level remains stable at 612 picograms per milliliter. All from correcting the 5 mistakes that had prevented her original supplementation from working. I know this information is detailed, and you might be worried about getting it all right. But here's why I need you to subscribe to this channel. The difference between supplements that work and supplements that fail often comes down to these specific details that nobody else takes the time to explain. Most health information gives you generic advice. Take vitamin B12. But the magic is in the specifics. What form? What dose? What time? With what? Without what? I stay on top of the latest research on nutrient absorption and metabolism in older adults. Every week, I break down exactly how to use vitamins and supplements in ways that actually deliver results, identify the common mistakes that waste money and prevent benefits, and create precise protocols you can follow. Subscribe because details matter. Details are often the entire difference between success and failure. And I promise you, every video here is made with one goal: giving you the specific, actionable protocols that transform supplement effectiveness. So let me give you the complete, optimized B12 supplementation protocol for adults over 60. Step 1, choose the right form. Use methylcobalamin, not cyanocobalamin. The label should clearly state methylcobalamin or methyl B12. If you're on acid-reducing medications, use sublingual methylcobalamin that dissolves under your tongue. Step 2, determine the right dose based on your current B12 status. If you've never been tested, get tested first. Ask for a serum B12 blood test. If your level is under 300 picograms per milliliter, start with 2,000 micrograms of methylcobalamin daily. If your level is 300 to 400, start with 1,500 micrograms daily. If your level is already above 400 but you want to maintain optimal levels, 1,000 micrograms daily is appropriate. Step 3, take it at the optimal time. Take your B12 supplement with lunch or mid-morning snack, not first thing in the morning. Take it with a meal that contains protein and some fat to maximize stomach acid and intrinsic factor release. Step 4, separate B12 from calcium. If you take calcium supplements, take them at a different time of day, at least 4 to 6 hours apart from your B12. If you eat calcium-rich foods like dairy with lunch, that's fine. The issue is the concentrated dose in calcium supplements. Step 5, address cofactor deficiencies. Take a high-quality B-complex supplement that includes methylfolate at 400 to 800 micrograms, vitamin B6 at 25 to 50 milligrams, and other B vitamins. Take magnesium 300 to 400 milligrams daily of a well-absorbed form like glycinate or citrate. These cofactors ensure that the B12 you absorb can actually be utilized. Step 6. If you're on medications that impair B12 absorption, use sublingual methylcobalamin. This includes people on proton pump inhibitors, H2 blockers, or metformin. Sublingual absorption bypasses the stomach and doesn't require intrinsic factor. Step 7. Be consistent. Take your B12 every single day. B12 is water-soluble, so your body doesn't store large amounts. You need daily intake to maintain levels. Step 8. Recheck your blood level after 8 to 12 weeks of optimized supplementation. This confirms that the protocol is working and that you're reaching optimal levels. If your level has increased appropriately into the 400 to 800 range, continue your current dose as maintenance. If it hasn't increased enough, increase your dose by 500 to 1,000 micrograms and recheck in another 8 weeks. And step 9, pay attention to symptom improvement. Blood levels are important, but symptoms matter more. Track whether your energy improves, whether brain fog clears, whether numbness and tingling resolve. These functional improvements confirm that B12 is not just in your blood, but actually working in your cells. Let me address some common questions. I'm already taking a B-complex vitamin. Isn't that enough? Most B-complex supplements contain only 100 to 500 micrograms of B12, and often it's cyanocobalamin. This is not enough to correct deficiency in older adults. You need a separate, higher-dose methylcobalamin supplement in addition to a B-complex. Can I just get B12 injections instead of dealing with all these supplement details? B12 injections are effective and may be necessary for people who truly cannot absorb oral B12, such as those with pernicious anemia. However, research shows that high-dose oral methylcobalamin, when taken correctly, is equally effective as injections for most people. Injections require doctor visits, can be expensive, and are inconvenient. If optimized oral supplementation works for you, it's preferable. I eat a lot of meat and dairy. Why do I need supplements? While animal products contain B12, absorption from food declines dramatically with age due to reduced stomach acid and intrinsic factor. By age 70, many people can no longer absorb adequate B12 from food alone regardless of diet. Supplementation becomes necessary. Is it possible to take too much B12? No. B12 is water-soluble and non-toxic. Doses as high as 5,000 to 10,000 micrograms daily have been used in research studies with no adverse effects. Excess is simply excreted in urine. The common recommendation of 2.4 micrograms daily is the minimum to prevent deficiency in healthy young adults. For older adults with absorption issues, doses 500 to 1,000 times higher are often needed and completely safe. Let me tell you about another patient, a man named Frank Wilson, whose story illustrates the importance of the sublingual route for people on certain medications. Frank was 74 years old, had been taking omeprazole 40 milligrams daily for 10 years for chronic reflux, and had developed severe B12 deficiency with a level of 143. His doctor prescribed oral B12 1,000 micrograms daily, but after 6 months, Frank's level had only risen to 168, barely any change. The omeprazole had so severely impaired his ability to absorb B12 through the stomach that oral supplementation wasn't working. I switched Frank to sublingual methylcobalamin, 2,000 micrograms daily dissolved under his tongue. Within 10 weeks, his B12 level jumped to 514. His neurological symptoms, which had been severe, improved dramatically. The sublingual route completely bypassed the absorption problem caused by his acid-blocking medication. Before you go, I want to say thank you for taking the time to learn how to optimize your B12 supplementation. If this information could help you finally resolve your B12 deficiency and eliminate the fatigue, brain fog, and neurological symptoms that have been plaguing you, I need you to do 3 things. First, subscribe to this channel for weekly detailed protocols on using supplements effectively. Second, hit that notification bell so you never miss critical optimization strategies. And third, share this video with anyone over 60 taking B12 supplements, because I guarantee most of them are making these mistakes and not getting the results they should. This information could transform their energy, cognition, and neurological health. Together, we're building a community of people who understand that supplements only work when used correctly. with attention to form, dose, timing, and cofactors. I'm here every week with evidence-based protocols. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Let me leave you with this final thought. B12 deficiency is one of the most common nutritional deficiencies in older adults, affecting up to 40% of people over 60. It's also one of the most devastating when left untreated, causing irreversible neurological damage, cognitive decline that mimics dementia, and profound disability. But it's also one of the most treatable deficiencies. When addressed correctly with the right form, right dose, right timing, and right cofactors, B12 deficiency can be completely reversed, often with dramatic symptom resolution. The tragedy is that so many people are taking B12 supplements but doing it wrong, remaining deficient despite their efforts, suffering needlessly from symptoms that could be resolved. You now have the knowledge to do it right. So comment one of 3 things. Fixing my protocol today if you're going to implement the optimized approach immediately, getting tested first if you need to check your B12 level before starting, or already doing it right if you're already using methylcobalamin with cofactors at the right time. Comment now. Fixing my protocol today, getting tested first, or already doing it right. Thank you for being here. Your brain, your nerves, your energy all depend on adequate B12. Get this right. I'll see you in the next video.